What if Doublade was in Gen 1 OU? I used to think way back in the day that any ghost type would immediately have an advantage. It didn't matter what ghost type it was, simply just being a ghost type should give anything a niche in Gen 1 OU. And by technicality, that's correct. Although, I've done enough of these videos to where I can now confidently say that even with a great typing, some Pokemon would just be plain bad. And unfortunately, Doublade is a prime example of that. And on one hand, maybe I'm being a little harsh, because this thing isn't even a fully evolved Pokemon. So like, of course it's not gonna do as great as what you would expect some things to do. But I don't know. I always felt like Doublade was one of the more usable middle stage Pokemon. And with a stat as high as 150, I thought you could take advantage of that. And once again, technically you could, but it's really not very good. The attack is only kind of average with the moves you have. And by moves, see how there's Slash? See how I have Sword Stance with no Hyper Beam? Yeah, this thing does not warn Hyper Beam. Doesn't warn Body Slam, Double Edge, or anything like that. It is so bad. Not even Earthquake. The only other attacking move you can give this thing is Rock Slide. Rock Slide! And the worst part is, and now that I'm looking over everything again, Rock Slide might be better than Slash, which is embarrassing to say. So what can you do? Well, I guess due to your typing, that at the very least is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I can't talk. You're immune to normal, which, you know, really good, especially for switching into Boom. You resist both Ice and Psychic. Those are nice. You resist Grass, but it just kind of ends from there. Not to mention, you have abysmal special bulk. Like, this genuinely might be the worst special bulk I have seen in this show so far. 59 HP is less than average. And 49 special defense is straight up bad. Technically, it is better than Rhydon special. But when Rhydon has significantly more HP than you, yeah, no, Rhydon is way tankier on the special side. If you don't know what this means, it means that basically anything can take advantage of Doubleblade's special weakness. Because, like, any special drop, and Doublade can no longer resist things. Even with resistance, it takes a bit more than other things in the format. So there's only one thing you can do with Doublade, which on paper would be kind of decent, and that's Reflect. With Reflect with 150 defense, that is so tanky on the physical side, it's not even funny. But you're slow. Like, slower than Rhydon slow. So there's two things that are going to kill you. The first is Rhydon. Granted, it doesn't OHKO you, but having to go for Reflect only after it goes for Earthquake is really rough. And of course, Tauros Cannon will get a critical hit on you. So, Doublade has really nothing going for it. Like, I'm sure in underuse, it'll be better there. But I don't know. Because, like, obviously Dugtrio doesn't hit anywhere near as hard as Rhydon. Long things like Dodrio's pretty nice, but I still feel like the water type they just kind of walk all over Doublade. So let me know in the comments where you think this guy would end up. And let me know if you'd ever want to see a revisited of Aegislash. Granted, I'm not exactly sure how I'd go through with that one, because technically, stance change works, but you don't see any visual changes. And even then, having Aegislash change between forms might be a little too broken for RBY. But at the same time, if I don't, do I have to choose between Shield form and Blade form? And how would that even work? It's a lot of weird questions, but I'd like to hear what you have to think. Now, we have less replays than normal, and that's because at some point you just kind of have to give up and accept the inevitable. Granted, that's even without Reflect. As you see there, Earthquake is not really doing anything. And that's the part that kind of hurts, because there is a smidge of something here. There are some things that are almost usable, but just not quite enough. I don't know if you need to buff its special defense or its HP. I don't know which one of those is more important, but regardless, I think both are definitely more important than its moveset. Don't get me wrong, its move pool is really, really bad. But even if we gave this thing, let's say, Earthquake or Hyper Beam, it would not change it much at all, since you're still suffering from horrendous bulk. Some of the worst bulk I've seen. As much as I hate to say it, it's giving serious Onyx energy. And yeah, that's not good. It is really not good if I ever have to compare something to Onyx. But here we are. And here's this replay where another thing I learned is that Dual Blade's attack is... it's low enough to where, even though it's at ×3 right now, I figure out later in this replay that you can actually go all the way to ×4. You don't have to, like, reset your stats. And I guess this replay here is, like, one of the few good matchups Dual Blade has. Snorlax is, like, one of the only things slower than you. So theoretically, you can stall it out. Or depending on the set, you can just beat it entirely. But at the same time, Amnesia Lex eats you for lunch, so... yeah, that's the best you got. And next up we have Chansey, and I guess you do a little bit better here than most matchups as well. But with Paralysis and Seismic Toss, you're probably not going to last too long. Although you could do better if it's only Ice Beam. But even then, I don't know how much better. Now, this replay is going to have me kind of misplaying a little bit with Chansey. I think at one point I do get pretty greedy and Dual Blade can get a free chance for the kill. But I promise you that most people aren't going to be careless like that. So, under normal circumstances, even with rest, if I had to guess, I would say most Chansey could stall out and wait for Paralysis. Though I suppose you could call it a could go either way. Oh yeah, Paralysis! Yeah, you're already slower than everything, but Dual Blade still really hates Paralysis. You lose one turn, and suddenly everything just kind of falls apart. And I guess I can mention it since you just saw in the replay there. Yes, with Sword Stance, the frail psychic types do take real damage, but it's really more of a too little too late, I would say. I just don't even see Dual Blade getting chances to, like, use Sword Stance at all. It's so bad, I almost consider if it's worth running Toxic instead. That's how bad this thing is. That, like, I would actually consider putting it on its moveset. At least for OU. Here's another hilariously bad one-sided matchup. Now, already being faster with Clamp is already bad enough, but then Cloyster can just eat you alive on the special side. And even if the Cloyster is paralyzed, Cloyster is physically tanky, and you have absolutely nothing that can hurt Cloyster. It is actually kind of hilarious. And Executor, yes, Paralysis and Psychic, already off to a bad start. And even though Executor has no reliable recovery, look at that. Psychic's already, like, a little bit more than a 4-hit KO. There is nothing Dual Blade can hear. Or Sword Stance, at best, is only doing a third. Ay. You would not think a Ghost Steel type would do this bad, because on paper, it's a stupidly good type in Gen 1. And there's Jolteon, not even Zapdos. I normally always end these replays with Zapdos, but not for this video, because this is how bad Jolteon's stomping, despite not even being weak to electric. I don't even need to show you Zapdos. So instead, we got two more replays to go over. Here we got Jinx. And Jinx, I guess, is also one of your better matchups, because despite the low special, Jinx only has Ice and Psychic moves. And unlike with Zam or Executor, at least for this replay, Jinx wasn't lucky enough to get a special drop. But two things to note. One, as you can see, the Dual Blade's basically dead anyways. And two, if Jinx did get a special drop, literally just one, it would have already won the battle. So, I'm not calling that a good matchup under any circumstances. And last we have Rhydon. Bit of a weird one to end on, but here we are. There's Reflect. And luckily, with Reflect, you could barely survive another Earthquake. Which, to be fair, does kind of show just the impressiveness that is Dual Blade's defense. Going from 64% to only 30.8%. But, you know, with only Rock Slide and Slash, even though Rhydon got kind of lucky here, I genuinely think it's not even that too far of a possibility to say that Rhydon could just keep fishing for a crit. Which, you know something's bad if Rhydon is comfortable switching for a crit. So yeah, that kind of sucks. Not as much as this taking forever to load. What the heck? It doesn't matter. Because I'm just going to give a spoiler alert. We can kind of see it here, but basically almost everything is just an unwinnable matchup for it. Maybe you could say Victory Bell is pretty good, but basically everything else in the tier eats Dual Blade alive. So that is unfortunate. What do you think? Do you think that Dual Blade has a bit of a chance? Do you think it can actually be kind of good? I don't think so. I think it's about as bad as having no internet, but that's a bit of an L on my part. Not so much Dual Blades. Feel free to make fun of me in the comments. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.